Blackmagic RAW doesn't just give you different compression numbers, it gives you two completely different ways to think about recording. So in this video, I want to compare constant bitrate and constant quality in real shots, look at the file sizes and figure out which one actually makes more sense. With constant bitrate, you choose a fixed setting like 3:1, 5:1 or 12:1. The point is that the file stays predictable. With constant quality, the logic is different. The codec is allowed to adapt to the particular scene, so if the scene gets harder, the bitrate gets higher, and if the scene is simple, the bitrate can get lower. I like to think that constant bitrate is file size focused and constant quality is quality focused. Let's look at the Blackmagic calculator on their website, where you can check the size of the files for your specific scenario. For my camera, it will be 4K DCI and 24 FPS, and I have a 2 TB drive. Fixed compression gives me a predictable amount of hours that I can record. So if I plan a big project and I have just one storage, I can make sure that I have enough space to cover all my footage. And as you can see, while checking constant quality, it's just an average because the codec adapts. But in the worst case, I won't have enough space to cover Q0 footage if my scenes are very hard. Q0 is allowed to go even above 3:1, and when it comes to Q5, it might even give you better results than keeping it at fixed 8:1. So if you have very limited storage, but you are worried that shooting at 12:1 will destroy some of your scenes, shooting at Q5 might be a great approach. But for now, let's look at the comparisons. I color graded them exactly the same way, and I'm not using any sharpness or noise reduction so that you can see the effect. I used the best possible method for rendering, and it's exporting via Handbrake. As you can see, I'm comparing 3:1 to Q0 and 12:1 to Q5, because those are both highest and lowest settings in each category. This way you can see how the adaptive codec behaves. Now let's go to the very hard and detailed scene. The moving grass has lots of details and it's very hard for the codec. And as you can see, both Q0 and Q5 went way over the averages. This is an example where using Q0 all the time might completely limit your storage space and you might record much less than you thought. I think that paying attention to those bit rates is very valuable because you can see if, for example, 3:1 overestimates the scene and just wastes the storage, or maybe it loses the quality and it would benefit from going even higher. Here you can see that 3:1 and Q0 are almost the same. And the same thing is for 12:1. And in this more close-up shot, you can see that Q0 chose to go a bit higher than 3:1. So again, you are getting a bit more quality. And as you might notice, sometimes those differences are not that visible. But it's good to know what to expect, and maybe you will get a better understanding of which compression you should choose for a particular scene if you want to change them during your shoot. In most cases, the lack of quality shows as a noise that will destroy details in your image. And now we have a wider shot, and here the bitrate will be very needed, and as you can see, both Q0 and Q5 go above the fixed compression settings. That's of course their normal behavior, but it shows that the scene benefits from more quality and more bitrate. And it really matters here on those close-up shots in the distance. You can see that the constant quality setting has much more details, sharpness, texture and separation. I think that those white landscapes are the best use case for constant quality. And I would say that it's especially when you are shooting at higher compressions. So when you are choosing 12:1, it might be much better to go to Q5. It will save some of your shots that are much more complicated. In this particular scene, there is not as much moving grass, so the differences are not that obvious. But again, the adaptive codec decided that the scene needs just a bit more data. And remember that all of this noise might destroy your footage when you use noise reduction or push the image in post-production. Now you can see those scenes side by side, as well as average bit rates, and I really encourage you to go through those scenes a few times. I won't show them too long, but make sure that you can notice the difference, and maybe it will help you decide which modes are the best for you. To be honest, after watching those comparisons, I'm convinced that if I had to go to higher compressions, I would choose Q5 and not 12:1, because the images would still be kind of small, but the quality where it's needed is much better, and I think that it's worth the extra space. And of course, you don't have to go all the way to Q0 or Q5. You can choose some of those steps in between, like Q3, depending on the size of your storage. But here I want to compare the most extreme options. I noticed that the difference is quite visible when I switch them very fast, so it's not about looking at the scene, more noticing the subtle changes between those shots. And you can see, especially in those higher compressions, that the difference is quite visible. 12:1 seems to be the worst in all of those cases, and it makes sense. One more thing to note is that those are static shots, so the bitrate stays quite consistent in constant quality. But if those shots were changing and you would change the framing of your shot from something very simple to very complicated, the results might be different and you might benefit from smaller file sizes. After looking at all of this, I think that the difference is really simple. If someone told me they want maximum constant quality performance, I'd look at Q0. If you want the easiest storage planning possible, go with the constant bitrate. I use 5:1 because I know that I have great image, even outdoors, and also kind of reasonable file sizes. But if your scenes are very easy and not complicated, it might not be worth going that high on fixed compression, and maybe even Q5 will be the best choice for you. If you want to know more about Blackmagic RAW, check out this video next. Thanks for watching, and remember, let your films be shot by reality.